Okay, shalom. Right, really interesting lesson. For who in the heavens is equal to Yod He Vav He? This is taken from Psalm 89, and we're going to be having a look at this in context of Moshiach ben Yosef primarily, but also there is indications to a link to the concept of Metatron. Okay. Right, so we've got the verse. For who in the heavens is equal to the Lord? Who resembles the Lord among the sons of the mighty? The reason why I did an analysis is because we were reading it one Shabbos, and I noticed that the initial letters are Moshiach ben Yosef. So I thought, okay, so that's worthy of an analysis, because I know there's a few times in the book called Torah, which is written, well, it's the teachings of the Vilna Gaon. He does make reference to places within the Tanakh where the initial letters are the same initial letters for Moshiach ben Yosef. So let's go and have a look, because this is an incredible revelation that we need for such a time as this. So first of all, mi b'shachach ya'arach. Who is in the heavens? Who in the heavens is equal? So these are just these three words here. I do go and have a look at this whole statement eventually, but for just these three words here, we've got 760 plus 130 plus 108. 890. I think we're probably going to have a look at them first. Obviously there's the Mispar Gadol, because you've got a calf sulfite, so that changes from 20 to 500. So obviously the numbers are bigger. What's called the Mispar Gadol means a big numbering based on the fact that we've got the sulfite letters. And then these are just the two different, the regular, and then the regular for the Mispar Gadol, and the ordinal added together, etc., etc. So we're just primarily looking at the numbers highlighted, but these are just combinations and additions between these two various ways of numbering this particular statement from Psalms. Okay, so your testimonies are faithful, 109. Your testimonies are faithful. It's this number, isn't it? It's the leprosy, Tzaharath, that equals 760 equals Tzaharath. I don't think the 109, just wait a minute, do a quick calculation just to make sure I'm not going crazy. No, that shouldn't be highlighted in pink, by the way. It's this one that we're looking at, because there's no relation. I usually colour coordinate it. I think I'll just quickly go change it. Okay, so this equals 760, and it's linked to leprosy, because within the verses of Torah regarding leprosy, there's a very powerful relation. There's a very, very powerful revelation that Yeshua is the Moshiach ben Yosef, and basically the coding is, we're told in the Talmud that a leper from the house of the Rebbe, which is Yehuda Anisi, is his name. Okay, so this is a coded message in Talmud. I've talked about it a lot, and I've got a lot of teachings. If you go search my teachings for leprosy, you'll get some teachings, or leprous Moshiach, you'll get some teachings regarding the verses in Torah, which are very, very illuminating, very, very revealing, and that clearly indicate who the Moshiach is. The Moshiach is who this Moshiach is that's a leper. It's what's revealed in the verses of Torah. So these testimonies are faithful. The testimonies regarding the Moshiach that is contained in the verses of leprosy. And who is the Moshiach revealed? It's Yeshua, because who, Tzaharath, it is leprosy, equals 772, which is 2 times 386, which is 2 times Yeshua. Okay, and that's just one of multiple indications within those verses in Torah which contain, the commandments regarding leprosy. So we've got leprosy again down there. Look, I've just highlighted it again. It's very significant, very, very important concept, because it basically reveals who the Moshiach is. Okay, so we've also got this, the 130, Moshiach ben David, That is the regular and ordinal of Moshiach ben David, when David is spelled with a Daleth, Vav, Daleth. Sometimes it got an additional Yud when it's rectified. If we add on to that the actual spelling of David, which is 14, it comes to 520, which is 4 times 130, 4 times Ayin, which this is the missing letter from Yeshua's name when he's cursed. Yeshu is his curse. He's had his name erased and his memory erased from within rabbinical Judaism, so they deny that he's Moshiach, but obviously he is the Moshiach. But it's part of the whole process of revelation from below, the work that we have to reveal the light of Moshiach ben Yosef below. Okay, overcoming our doubts and overcoming all the sheker and the confusion and all the the negativity. But he is the Moshiach. He's the Moshiach of Yod He Vav He, as revealed in the Torah very clearly. Okay, 4 times 130. When I say the letter Ayin, this is the letter Ayin spelt out as it sounds. So Ayin also means eye. We've got to be able to see. There's a blindness regarding the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef. It's very difficult to see clearly because there's so much obscurity. Like, for example, the last 2,000 years of Christian history is a big obscurity from a Jewish perspective, especially when you're going around killing Jews. There is a lot to obscure this truth. There's a lot to obscure this truth, and plus the Erev domination of rabbinical Judaism, which basically is there's a lot of lies that need decoding from within the Jewish faith. Okay, so for God had taken him. So this is the link to Enoch, and this therefore the link to Metatron. So obviously, I've talked about this before, Metatron is in place until we fully reveal the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, until we fully restore the channel, what's called Yesod, part of the tree of life. And before we fully restore that channel that channels the light from the name Yod He Vav He, from the abundance from his name down to earth. Okay, from anyway, I don't need to go over that. I've gone through that a lot in the teachings of Metatron. I did a big one on a 3-hour teaching on Metatron, and I go through this concept a lot, how Metatronic worship is in place instead of worshipping Yod He Vav He through the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef. We worship Yod He Vav He through the concept of Metatron. In fact, most people in this world at this time, their understanding of who God is no more than Metatron. It's Metatron that they are understanding. They have not got access to the tree of life, the name Yod He Vav He. And it's just a simple fact. If you go watch the video on Metatron, the 3-hour video, you'll soon see how most people's understanding of God at this time is Metatronic. It's not messianic. It's based on lies and delusion and concealment regarding the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, and therefore concealment of the name Yod He Vav He. So that channel is very much restricted. We should have the full revelation of Moshiach ben Yosef, Od Yosef Chai, and we should have full access to the divine abundance that is brought forth from the name Yod He Vav He, but we don't. We have concealment that puts Yosef in a state of exile, that is not known to his brothers. There's no unity, and therefore Metatron's in place all the while Yosef's in exile, suffering with us, and that's synonymous with Yeshua in Edomite exile, suffering with us until his Jewish brothers recognize Od Yosef Chai, and then this re-establishes the channel between heaven and earth, because it's the truth, and Yaakov is revived with the truth, and Yaakov symbolizes the truth and the heavens, and we are wanting an outflow from the heavens down to earth. We're wanting to receive the revelation of the name Yod He Vav He, and in order to get that light from above to below, there has to be a channel in place. And when we are in a state where Yeshua is not fully recognized, he's not even fully recognized with the Christians. They've got this idol worship, it's basic idol worship, and it's a demonic understanding of Moshiach ben Yosef, even though their souls have been touched with the truth. Once it gets into the Edomite exile and the Roman exile and the exile that the church represents, it all becomes distorted. So they have not got a clear understanding of the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef and what Yod He Vav He is trying to do. It's all jumbled up with idol worship, and therefore usually in place of the truth about Moshiach ben Yosef is some is Metatron or Yosef in disguise. It's not the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef as revealed in the Torah. There's a big difference. Okay, so that's why Metatron and Enoch. This is why this is related to this. Who is in the heavens is equal. Well, it should be Moshiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. It should be the concept of the Mashiach as the channel between heaven and earth, but we've got something there instead. Okay, and that's got a mispar gadol of ordinal of 141, which is Emunah, because we are in this process of exile to correct our Emunah. Once our Emunah is fully corrected, our Emunah in the coming of the Mashiach and our Emunah in the resurrection of the dead, two aspects of Emunah that are in this, we're in this two millennia of the Messianic era, and want to complete these two aspects of faith in the coming of Moshiach, the true Moshiach, the Moshiach of Yod Heh Vav, as revealed in the mind of Yod Heh Vav, which is his Torah, and not within the exilic religions of Judaism, Islam and Christianity, but in truth, okay, as revealed in truth through what we're able to perceive with a Hebraic mindset that is not enslaved to any of these religious mindsets that dominate at this time. Okay, and they're all, each and every one of them proclaiming that they are the truth and the others are lies, and all this, they all contain a great light and a great revelation, and they have a great purpose. I am not denying that. Islam, Judaism and Christianity. But the ultimate end is for us to break free from the exilic mindsets that dominate, the Ishmaelite mindset, the Greco-Roman mindset of the Christian faith, the Ishmaelite mindset of Islam, I should have said, and then the Erev Rav mindset of Judaism. They all need defeating and overcoming, and we all need a Hebraic mindset in order to perceive the truth regarding Moshiach ben Yosef and the truth regarding the Torah. It needs to be divested of as exilic influences that only fuel our ego. We've got to be humble like Yosef. He was a Hebrew, like Jonah, he was a Hebrew. Okay, we've got to, and these are two very powerful forces, Hebraic forces we need to connect to in order to attain that Hebraic mindset, which is able to perceive true reality, as opposed to believing that the concealment is the revelation, which is the situation that we're in now. Okay, the supreme will is ultimately the tree of life. It's the 10 Sefirot. But ultimately that is really manifestation of a man. Which man? Adam. And specifically, it's the 10 Sefirot, which are the will of God, is very much connected to a revelation of Moshiach, because, like I say, it's the tree of life, and the tree of life is in the configuration of a man, Adam. Okay, Adam Kadmon, the first man, but we are waiting to reveal the last Adam, which would be Moshiach ben David. Okay, so that's 130. The ordinal of that is 130. That's a very significant number, comes up all the time. Don't think we'll be going through it now. Because he was a son of his old age, so Yaakov loves more Yosef. Well, it actually says Israel. I think it's Israel loves Yosef more than all of his sons because he's a son of his old age. So that comes to 130. Okay, this was a problem. This caused, ultimately, we're talking about 130 representing the ayin, that jealousy and hatred because Israel loved Yosef more, was probably the source of him having his name erased. You know, Yosef was more beloved because he was a son of his old age, but there was consequences to that, weren't there? You know, because of this, he ended up having the letter Ayin. Yeshua ended up having the letter Ayin removed from his name, and degraded and disgraced and put into exile. Not, you know, he's not just in exile within the Christian church, but he was put into exile by his own brothers. You know, they sentenced him to death, the corrupt Sanhedrin. He pleaded not to have to go into this Edomite exile. He pleaded till he sweat blood. That is a sign of a Moshiach, by the way. Moshe pleaded to go into the land of Israel. He didn't want to be left in exile, exiled into the Erev Rav dominion. Okay, he didn't want to suffer seeing his Jewish brothers and sisters. He's suffering because the Jews are so influenced by these powerful demonic forces, and Moshe didn't want that. He wanted them to be able to perceive the true Torah of Moshe that was revealed through Moshe. The name Yod-Heh-Vav is revealed through Moshe, but instead they've ended up with Erev Rav domination, and that's rabbinic Judaism of today. It's Erev Rav dominated completely, totally. It has been since Moshe was exiled. I think it's 3,293 years ago. Okay, as of Pesach 2021. So this has been a long time. Moshe has been suffering a long time. Yeshua has been suffering a long time. Yeshua also begged and pleaded. That's a sign of Moshiach. They didn't willingly go into exile. They wanted, for the sake of the believers, for the sake of the house of Israel, to not have to descend, for not their Torah and their teaching, the revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav, to descend into such depths and depravity. But it was the will of Yod-Heh-Vav. It was the supreme will that all this happened. Why? Because through that process of descent, there will ultimately be an ascent. Okay, this is the resurrection from the dead. You know, Adam died and he fell, and then he will go through a process of elevation and resurrection. He fell, and then he will be finally elevated, and all humanity elevated with him in the last Adam, which is Moshiach ben Yosef. So we're all part of this process of rectification. Okay, so don't forget it's the will of Yod-Heh-Vav. So we can't point fingers and say, oh, you're to blame. No, Yod-Heh-Vav gives us a work to do. He's caused us to toil for that ultimate revelation, the revelation of the inner and outer aspects of his name, which come via Moshe, who is the outer aspect of the name Yod-Heh-Vav as revealed in the letter of the law, the name Yod-Heh-Vav as revealed through the letter of the law, and Yeshua, which is a Torah of Moshiach, is the revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav as revealed above the letter of the law. Okay, the higher levels of mercy. Why? Because the children of Israel that was lost in the nations were without merit, according to the Torah. They had to have a revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav above the letter of the law, and that was given access to them through Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, King David will unite those two together. The two sticks will come together in Moshiach ben Yosef, and we'll have one shepherd, and it will be over all humanity. Okay, so all this process that we've been in is just about, the whole process of this last 6,000 years is to ultimately reveal the name. The inner and outer names of Yod-Heh-Vav are perfectly united together. There's lots of forces that come against that, lots of forces of concealment. Can you find out the mystery of God? So yes, the mystery of God is this removal of the ayin from the name of the Moshiach, Yeshua, and the whole hiding of the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef, or Moshiach ben Yosef in exile, with this name and his memory erased, and this whole channel between heaven and earth greatly reduced on account of this, and then the whole process of rectification of faith that we need to go through in order to re-establish the truth regarding the Moshiach and the truth regarding the resurrection of the dead, and to see that flow open from above to below, and to gain the vessels of shalom in order for us to fill up with that light that Yod-Heh-Vav desires to bestow upon us. And the light he desires to bestow upon us is a revelation, is his oneness. What is his oneness? That there's no other authority in this world other than him. He designed everything. All the forces of exile, it was by his supreme will that it be so, in order for all humanity to rise up in Moshiach, okay, even higher than what we were before the fall. Right, missing letter ayin, okay, which also means I. We need to be able to see what's before us. We need to be able to perceive. We need to be able to look at these 6,000 years, and specifically these last 2,000 years since Yeshua has been dead. He's been dead now 1,988 years according to the astronomical calculations of Sir Isaac Newton, we're very close to the end of those 2,000 years that are synonymous with the 2 years that Joseph had to fulfill in the pit after he cried out and demonstrated the lack of faith to the cupbearer, remember me and take me out of here. For those 2 words that he cried, remember me and take me out, he spent an additional 2 years forgotten and not taken out until his faith in Yod Heh Vav Heh was corrected. We are correcting 2 aspects of faith in these 2 millennia. For that was Joseph to correct his faith. We are correcting our faith in the name Yod Heh Vav Heh at the highest levels possible. Okay, the highest levels possible. All humanity. Okay, so it's even related to this. Look, take me out. This was one of the words uttered by Joseph. That comes to 650, which is a very significant number. So it's 568. This is a very significant number. We will come across it in this teaching, actually. Very, very, very powerful. Very much connected to a revelation of the Moshiach. Very much connected to the ordinal of the books of the Torah. All 5 books of Torah, which the ordinal of the books of Torah to do with Moshiach ben Yosef. It's such a wonderful number. It really is. We will come across it, like I say. 82 is Moshiach ben David, the ordinal of Moshiach ben David, spelt out. So just put MBD there, because I come across this number all the time. Anybody who's watched my teachings, the number 82 comes up all the time. Okay, and I've put that 681 is 8 times 71. 71 is Yonah, and Yonah is the sign, the only sign that Moshiach ben Yosef gave to a wicked and adulterous generation, which is this generation, by the way. We are the most wicked and we are the most adulterous. We have fallen the furthest away from that light that we initially received when we were born again. When the soul of Moshiach touched our soul, we can't be further away. We have become, we're totally, compared to the light that we received, the way that we live our lives now, we are the wicked and adulterous generation that he spoke of. So we need the sign of Yonah. And Yonah means Jonah, and it also means dove. And this sign is in everywhere you look when it comes to the revelation of Moshiach ben Yosef. Okay, everywhere you look, it is this sign of Yonah. So we've got it there. It's just everywhere. And he said, for there's a hand on the throne of the eternal. So that's 496, which is very significant. We will come across that number again because it's related to a revelation of Moshiach ben David. Very, very, very powerfully related to Moshiach ben David. And he said, for there is a hand on the throne of the eternal. The hand, by the way, is the hand of Amalek. This is the doubt concerning Moshiach ben Yosef that we've all got to battle with. Olam Haba, whether we're Jewish, if from Islam, Muslims or Christians, there's all doubt regarding Moshiach ben Yosef, the concept of Moshiach. Okay, because we've all got part of the truth but not all of the truth. So we all suspect when somebody's saying something else about the Moshiach ben Yosef, we all suspect that they are like false prophets, false messiahs, something other than Yod Heh Vav Heh, but they all contain the light. Yes, there are all elements of lies within each of the main religions, but there's also revelations of the truth. Concealment and revelation is a mixture. There's a mixture within Judaism, there's a mixture within Christianity, there's a mixture within Islam. We've got to have Hebraic minds, because Hebraic minds are being able to discern the truth, what's the light and what's the dark, being able to sort between light and dark. Okay, so there's a lot of doubts. Doubts is part of the concealment. Sheker is part of the concealment. And we need the power of Yonah to overcome those, and we need the power of Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. So 154 is Olam Haba, the world to come. Okay, which is the 8th millennium, after we've had our 1,000 years of Shabbat. 650 is 5 times 130. We've already pointed that out. Okay, 5 times ayin, rectification of the missing letter ayin. It's also 10 times mezuzah. Moshiach is very deeply connected to the concept of mezuzah, the gate to the name Yod Heh Vav Heh. Okay, so there's every single last thing that you can look at regarding the mezuzah is connected to the concept of Moshiach, and it very clearly points to a revelation also of Moshiach ben Yosef. I've gone over the concept of mezuzah a lot. When I said get to the name Yod Heh Vav Heh, at this time we can't pronounce the name Yod Heh Vav Heh. We have a gate that we use to access that name. The gate is called Adonai. So Adonai is 2.5 times, sorry, Yod Heh Vav Heh is 2.5 times the word Adonai. So Adonai is 65, exactly the same as a mezuzah. The mezuzah comes to 65. So we have got this gate that we have to go through to access the name Yod Heh Vav Heh. We have a gate that we have to go through to access that light of the name Yod Heh Vav Heh. It's called Moshiach. Okay, and primarily it's Moshiach ben Yosef, because in that light we see the light of Yod Heh Vav Heh. But it's really a united concept of all the concepts of Moshiach. It's Moshe, the body of the bird, Moshiach ben Yosef, the left wing of the bird, joy, and Moshiach ben David, the right wing of the bird. What bird? A dove, Yonah. That's the sign that we need. It's unity between the concept of Moshiachim. And also, there's the 2.5 tribes that are on the eastern side of the Jordan, the River Jordan. Okay, the 2.5 tribes that wanted, the tribes of Gad and Manasseh and things like that, they wanted to be on the other side. Half tribe of Manasseh, Gad and Reuben wanted to be on the other side, the eastern side of Jordan. So they are like a gateway into the actual proper land of Israel, Israel proper. You know, so all these things are to bear in mind. It's all glorious revelation, by the way. So Yosef squared is also 650. So if you take each letter and square it, so Yod is 10, square it 100, Vav is 6, square it 36, Samech 15, square it 225, and then Pei squared. Add them all together, 289 Pei squared comes 650. Jerusalem plus Zion, we've got this 82 again, haven't we? These are the regulars, these are the ordinals. So 82 is Moshiach ben Yosef, 48 is Yosef. Okay, 156 is also Yosef, because that's why Zion is an appellation for Yosef. Jerusalem is very much connected with the revelation of Moshiach ben David. Got to unite them both together. Okay, united them both together, that's Moshiach ben David, as we can see somewhere up here. Where did I write? Moshiach ben David, the ordinal of Moshiach ben David is 82. So we can see that's related to Jerusalem, and Zion is related to Yosef. Both the regular of Zion is equal to Yosef, and the ordinal of Zion is exactly the same as the ordinal for Yosef, 48. So united together, like I say, it's all about unity of Meshachim, so that we can see the truth. We can see the truth. This is Ayin, which means I. 130 is the letter Ayin filled out, missing from Yeshua's name. It's also I. We need to be able to perceive truth in reality. I have surely remembered. Okay, so this is now the 890 of who's equal in heavens. Who's equal in heavens is very related to Pokot Pokote. This is from this week's Torah portion, by the way, Shemot. Pokot Pokote, I've just been reading that. These are the words that are uttered by Moshe, and they were a sign and a code given to the children of Israel to allow them to know that he was the Redeemer. And it was Sarach bat Asher, who is one of the 5 aspects of salvation, one of the 5 strong petals that are talked about that surround the 13 petals of the rose, which is Knesset Yisrael, so the 13 tribes in total. Pokote, I have surely remembered you. Sarach bat Asher knew that these were the codes that the Redeemer would say. They're very much also related to what Yosef said, and he adjured the children of Israel to take his bones out of here. He says, when God will surely remember you, remember to take my bones out with you. Okay, so it's very much related to that as well. So the regular comes to 778, the ordinal 112, which is exactly the same as the name Yod Heh Vav Heh Elohim, which is the unity between heaven and earth, which is what we want to achieve. Unity, we want in the unity between heaven and earth, and the flow between that to be fully opened up and realized. So 112 is Yod Heh Vav Heh Elohim, Lord God. That's what it would be translated in English. Another word, this 778 is Shavuot. King David was born and died at Shavuot. Okay, so they're very, very significantly connected also to a revelation of Moshiach ben David. And like I say, Moshiach ben David will bring peace between heaven and earth. He will bring peace between the male and female, bring peace between Israel and the nations, bring peace between body and soul. And that peace is the vessel through which we are able to receive the light Yod-Heh-Vav desires for us to bestow upon us. Desires to bestow upon us. Right, 890 is 2 times 445. In its place, that's from Zechariah 14:10. This is a highly messianic verse, by the way. I haven't got a chance to put it all up, but Tachteha, in its place. Got to remember that this Tachath is very symbolic, because Yeshua was Tachath Beno. He was the ram that was Tachath Beno instead of, or in place of, Yitzchak. Okay, it's really the whole point of the suffering is Yitzchak is code name. Okay, there's an element to Yitzchak that's positive, and there's an element to Yitzchak, the left hand side of divinity, that's negative, that needs to be corrected, if you like. And that's what contains all the harshness and all the judgments and all the punishments, the darkness. Okay, so when it says I set an end to darkness, we're talking about removing. It's what Yitzchak represents, Gevurah, which is might and strength, you know. It's a good thing, like Angel Gabriel is very much connected to that, you know. So this is a very holy power, but there's also something that's very negative about it, the judgments and the bitterness and the darkness. This is what we're in a process of removing. So we've got to understand, why was he instead of Yitzchak? It says Tachath Beno, the ram was Tachath Beno in place of Yitzchak. He had to go and suffer this horrific exile, all the darkness, all the judgments, all the harshness. Moshiach ben Yosef is suffering in exile with us, especially when we are murdering Jews in the name of Jesus, as is what has happened in history. You know, this kind of behaviour causes the soul of Moshiach ben Yosef a great amount of suffering and darkness. This is torment and punishment and everything else, and his soul is suffering because we're doing it all in his name. All the sins that we're doing in his name are causing nothing but nothing, and all the rituals, like the Catholic Church, all the rituals, all the lies, all the denial of the truth, you know, what we should be doing, imitating the name Yod-Heh-Vav, the example that he gave us to imitate the name Yod-Heh-Vav at the highest levels of mercy possible. All merciful, all forgiving, all kind, truthful, everything like that. That's totally denied, and we're just going around doing all these rituals, building all these churches, you know, all this rubbish instead, all in his name. This causes the soul of the Moshiach in truth to suffer. This is the darkness he's taken upon himself to ultimately bring it to an end, because at one point he will overpower it. All this darkness that we have created in his name. And not only that, the way that the Jews have looked at it and perceived it. There is truth in the way the Jews are looking at it and perceived it, but they are also adding fuel to the fire, you know, and all this darkness and concealment. He has gone into that darkness and concealment in order to overwhelm it. Okay, it's not just death, it's darkness itself, it's concealment itself, and that concealment itself will be transformed into a revelation of the truth about what Od Yosef Chai, that he was not defeated by this, despite efforts on all parts to conceal him. He will not be concealed forever. There's a time involved in this concealment, and it's when he's revealed, it's like we will mourn. We will all mourn, you know, for what we've done to him, with the suffering that we've caused him, truly the suffering that we've caused him. But he wasn't willing. Like I say, sweat, blood, he didn't want to go. This is a sign of Moshiach, but Yod-Heh-Vav was willing to put him who was perfect and innocent in this place to suffer for all the sake of all of us, the whole of humanity to be ultimately raised up when we're able to perceive the light trapped in this darkness. So he was in place of this darkness that leads to death, that leads to judgment, that leads to punishment, concepts like fire and hell, anything associated with the kind of cruel harshness of nature and anything like that. Yeshua was in place of all that. He took it all upon himself. He suffered all of it. He didn't just die in a crucifixion. That would have been bad enough. He's been suffering the entire 2,000 years under the burden of all this evil that we have caused him to suffer. And we have attacked him from all sides. Whether we Islamic people, creating this darkness, Christian people, we've created enough, Jewish people creating darkness, not perceiving the light trapped in this, like they should have been doing, sorting light from dark. No, just creating more concealment, more confusion, cursing him, whilst he's suffering for the entire of humanity instead of Yitzchak. And Yitzchak should have been bound. Why should Yitzchak have been bound? Why did Yod-Heh-Vav ask Abraham to bind Yitzchak? Because Yitzchak had this power within him that contained this judgment and harshness, and it needed to be done away with. Okay, but his plan was not for just that. His plan was, that was a little version of what would be the big version, Moshiach ben Yosef, taking upon all this, going into exile, going into this concealment that is exile now in each and every one of his lives, until that day where his light breaks forth and shines forth. Okay, and it will come because it's the will of Yod-Heh-Vav to cause it to happen. And none of our evil, none of the evil we have, absolutely enforced in our lives through these religions and these exilic mindsets that we cling to as if it's precious truth, none of that evil will prevail. His light, the truth of what Yod-Heh-Vav has done in the life of Moshiach ben Yosef, will prevail, and we will all see it when our eyes are opened. We will all see it. So this is very much, you've got to understand what has Yod-Heh-Vav been doing? Glorious things, that's what he's been doing. We have perceived the darkness, and it's nothing but glory. It gave us a work to do. We've got to start doing the work we should be doing, sorting light from darkness, figuring it all out. We've got hindsight now. We're living in the darkest possible time, but we've got hindsight. We can now look back and see what Yod-Heh-Vav has been doing. We can't see up front. We are right on the edge of revelation now. We've got to open our eyes and see, because we have hindsight. We have the ability to look back and see, because if we see that there's been something other than Yod-Heh-Vav, that's a false god we have created in our own imaginations. Okay, there is only Yod-Heh-Vav, and it was his will to cause the Moshiach ben Yosef, Yeshua, to descend into exile and suffer this horrific exile with us up to the 49th level of impurity, and there will be no level that won't be able to hide him eternally. His light will break forth from the lowest, most depraved, impure situations possible, and that light is breaking forth today. We've got to open our eyes and see it. We've got to understand what has been going on. And then all of a sudden, all these things that we don't think are anything to do with Yod-Heh-Vav, we'll realise all this evil itself. It's only Yod-Heh-Vav that allowed it to be for a very great purpose. Okay? And to give us a work to do, to dignify our existence in this evil itself, to give us a dignity, a work to do. Imagine that we can actually reveal the truth of Yod-Heh-Vav in this and through this evil that we have suffered in exile. Imagine that we've been given that work to do, and imagine when we do it. So we've got to unite. It's all humanity. We've got to overcome this. Very interestingly, 890 is 10 times 89. Okay, what is 89? 89 is the ordinal of Yetzer Hara, evil inclination. What is synonymous with evil inclination. Edom, what is, and Esav? Esav is, Edom was from Esav. Okay, so what is all this then? This is the exile we are all suffering now. Edomite exile. We are all subject to the forces of our evil inclination. What's the greatest force that can come against us? Our own imaginations. Our own imaginations as to what Moshiach is, as to what Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh is. We've got to fight against our imagination. What fuels our imagination? The lies of the religions that we've inherited. Because we've inherited truth that is exiled. The truth of in the New Testament, the truth about Moshiach has been exiled in the New Testament. That's been exiled into Greco-Roman mindset, Western culture, Rome. Okay. The Torah of Moshe descended into Erev Rav domination. It's filled with Erev Rav influence. Got to break free of this. Got the Hebrew minds. It's all fuels our imagination. It all fuels our evil inclination to create to create uncircumcised hearts and minds and lips, because it fuels our egos and imaginations. We end up, whichever religion we are a part of, we end up thinking that we are the most chosen people. We have got the most truth. If you look closely, you've probably got the most lies. You've inherited lies. You got to discern truth from lie. You've got to use your powers of discernment. You've got to cling to the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Humble yourself. It's humbling to know the truth. It's humbling to be a Hebrew, because there's nobody on your side. That you have to go against every flow of influence in this world at this time. And it's humbling and it's lonely. Okay, so the truth, the path of truth is very humbling. But we are not alone in the search for it. You know, to be a Hebrew means you've got to go. You go against the flow. It means from the other side. We don't get caught up in the lies we've inherited. Something within us is battling against that. What within us? Our Hebrew souls desiring to be liberated from all this demonic forces, all this evil, all this ego. Judaism fuels ego. Christianity fuels ego. Islam fuels ego to the point where you're prepared to murder other people. You know, or other people's lives are worth nothing. Nothing to you. This can happen. And in the name of religion, the God you're supposed to be worshipping, which is not Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, by the way. Okay, it's just part of the delusion. You got to break free from it. And it's we're in a challenging time. We're completely dominated by evil forces. We have got to work harder than ever before to reveal the light. Okay, so for the anointing oil, 778, which we've already gone through that, haven't we? We've already pointed out that's Shavuot. I have surely remembered you now for the anointing oil. Le Shemen HaMishcha. So that's like, well, that's the same gematria as Mashiach. So HaMishcha, anointing. And Mashiach means anointed. And you can see that the HaMishcha is the same gematria as Mashiach. So it's all connected in its revelation of Moshiach, you know, the anointed one. 778 is connected to that. And 112 there. It's exactly the same gematria. Look, 890, 10 times 89, 10 times Yetzer Hara, evil inclination. We know the Moshiach has had to descend into all these forces of evil that we find ourselves subject to. He is suffering with us in it until we get the strength to get ourselves out of it. And ultimately, it's Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, an aspect of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh himself, who's bound to the soul of the Moshiach, who's one with the soul of Mashiach ben Yosef, suffering with us in this exile until we learn to free ourselves from the lies that have entrapped us, from the influences of our own ego, for the power of the Yetzer Hara and our imaginations that are fueled by the lies we've inherited. We've got to get free. We've got to recognize and repent and get serious. You know, we've got his spiritual warfare is this. It cannot be. We cannot defeat the forces of evil without fighting. We've got to know what we're fighting. We've got to understand, when it's our ego that's going to get crushed if we start to declare the truth regarding Yeshua. If you're Jewish, you might as well forget it. You're going to be seen as something less than dog dirt on the bottom of your shoe. It doesn't matter. It's the truth. Speak for it. Enough people rise up and speak from within Judaism about the truth. I'm not saying give up Orthodox Judaism, give up the Torah for this sake, but you've got to find the truth and stand by it and speak it. And the more people who are speaking it, the more we will influence people to drop their arrogance and exilic mindsets that are rejecting this truth constantly, rejecting this light and calling it darkness. The light of truth, that Yeshua is the Moshiach. Okay, it's time to end this nonsense and these Erev forces within Judaism are disgusting, and also the forces within Christianity that refuse to accept the truth regarding Yeshua, that he was a Hebrew, that he was from the tribe of Yehuda, that he kept the Torah according to the letter of the law as revealed by Moshiach, the revelation of the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. We've got to unite that together. We've got to also see that the soul of Moshiach didn't just come in Yeshua, it came in Moshiach too, and it will come again in Moshiach ben David. Okay, the ram for the offering. It doesn't get closer than that, does it? That's 445. We've already talked about. He was the ram. Haseh la'olah. La'Allah. It means it for the offering. Olah. That word is connected very much to King David as well. So 445, 76, which is Bereshith, I do believe. The ordinal for Bereshith, in the beginning. And 597. We've got revenge for blood, nekmath dam. This is a very, very important word, because nekmath, the regular and the ordinal of nekmath comes to 658, which is the rectified spelling for hamaoroth, the luminaries. In Torah it's spelt defective with 2 missing vowels, but if we add the 2 missing vowels up, it comes to 658. So when we see the revenge for the blood, the spilt blood of the servants, this is talking about the spilt blood of the servants of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, we will see that luminary rectified, but we have to pray that this revenge happens in a good way. Because we are all guilty. We are all guilty of spilling the blood of his servant. His ultimate servant is Yeshua HaMashiach. We're all guilty. So we've got to plead that this revenge happen in a merciful way for the sake of all humanity. Because we couldn't tolerate punishment for the suffering that Moshiach ben Yosef has had to suffer on account of our egos and delusion. But this is the price that he paid. It was the price that he paid. It was a price that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh was willing to pay for all of us, so that we would all complete this tikkun and repair our faith in the name Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. It's all part of a glorious plan when it's ultimately revealed, but we've still got to pray for mercy, because there's options where we could really have to be brought to account, and it would be devastating for all humanity. We've got to pray for mercy, and that mercy is available to us. Why is it available to us? It's available to us through the suffering, the ram, the suffering of Moshiach ben Yosef. That is the provision to gain access to the highest levels of mercy that we need in order to elevate us out of this guilt that we've brought upon ourselves through just the way that we've lived our lives to conceal and cause further suffering from Moshiach ben Yosef. So all this, look at the concealment within Christianity, concealment in Judaism, concealment within Islam regarding the concept of Moshiach ben Yosef has caused more spilling of the blood of servants than anything else. You need to end this, and when this is ended, it will be glorious, and we'll see glorious things. We'll see the Ma'aroth, Ha-Ma'aroth, the luminaries, which are the concept of Moshiach, Moshiach ben Yosef, Moshiach ben David, we'll see them fully restored. So Nechmath, let me just work it out, it's 400 and I think it comes to 590 plus the ordinal would take it up to 658. I haven't put it on there, but I just thought it was an opportune moment to speak, seeing as I've been speaking about all the things that I've been speaking about. And finally, this is Yeshua. Now you've got to understand, I talked about the Ma'aroth I've just talked about, I wasn't planning on talking about the Ma'aroth, the Ha-Ma'aroth, the luminaries, which are spelt defective in the Torah itself. They're written without the missing two vowels. Okay, so this is a spelling of the Yeshua, right? And so we're in a state of exile where those two vowels are not fully revealed. They won't be revealed until the revenge for the blood of the spilt blood of the servants happens, and that, you know, the Jewish people are counted in that. The Christians whose blood's been spilled for the sake of the name of Yeshua are counted in that. And also the Muslims whose blood has been spilled when they are innocent, you know, they're innocent, and they are part of God's plan for all humanity to know his name and to know his authority and receive a revelation of his oneness. So there's lots of blood being spilled. It isn't just been Yeshua, but Yeshua has had to suffer for all that blood that has been spilled. He is suffering with us when we are in this exile, subject to these lies, subject to imagination, and subject to evil influence, evil inclination. He is suffering as a consequence of that with us. Okay, until that blood is avenged, Nechmath Dam. And like I said, that's related to the Ha-Ma'aroth, the luminaries that are diminished, and they're related to the concept of Moshiach. So we've got Moshiach Yeshua, and it's spelt with the nun missing vavs. Okay, so the letter nun is missing a vav. Nun, if you spelt it properly, would be two Moshiach. 2 times Moshiach, the ordinal of Moshiach, it comes to 106. Sorry, it would be 2 times Yeshua, it comes to 106. Okay, but like I say, he's not fully revealed because this force of Erev, the forces of the evil inclination dominate. So that light is diminished as a result, just like the light of the luminaries. This is all part of Yod-Heh-Vav's plan. It's for us. It's for us to reveal that light from the concealment itself. So this spelling out ordinarily comes to 445, which, like I say, it's all these, connected to all these. He has had to be diminished and go into the exile of the evil inclination, to exile of Edom, and suffer with us until the truth is fully revealed. The truth represents the Vav. We have got the job of revealing that truth, that Od Yosef Chai. It's our toil to overcome the forces of Amalek. It's our toil to subdue the forces of the evil inclination. Okay, it's our toil to overcome the forces of these exilic mindsets, Ishmaelite mindset, Christian mindset, Greco-Roman mindset, Edomite mindset, Erev Rav mindset. It's our toil. Then we will have earned the right to that elevation that we will experience in Moshiach, back up to Gan Eden for all humanity. We will have earned that. We will know, because you know why we will know? Because we know the power of this evil that we have endured. You imagine when we triumph over that, the evil we see in this world is ours to conquer with the truth. Okay, until it yields a revelation of Od Yosef Chai, and through that revelation, the unity and oneness and sovereignty of the name Yod-Heh-Vav. Okay, there's no other way, by the way. There's no other. We can't ignore reality. Yeshua is a reality of these last 2,000 years. If you want to deny that and say, oh, that's something other than Yod-Heh-Vav, you are never going to. If you just class that as another God, that other God is part of your imagination, by the way, that you have created. You have to see that what looks like something other, you've got to reveal the light that it contains. Okay, because Yod-Heh-Vav is hidden his light, and he hides it often in the least obvious place.